I led a sales team to over $3 million in profit for a quarter. And it changed my perspective on high ticket sales forever. Everything that I ever knew about high ticket sales and management and leadership completely changed when I hit that first $3 million month in profit. I didn't take a single call. I didn't have to micromanage. The team was completely dialed in and bought in on the offer and the vision of the company. The founder didn't have to hop on a single sales call at all when we hit that $3 million quarter in profit. And in today's video, I'm gonna break down the common trends that I see when people are stuck at multiple six figures and they're looking to break through their first 7-figure month for their high ticket sales offer. Now, this video is gonna be much about marketing. It's gonna be everything about sales that I know from hitting that $1 million a month in profit time and time again, not just for one business, but multiple businesses and things that we're actively doing right now in our portfolio over at Power Studio. So if you're someone that has something that hasn't been proven to sell already, this video isn't for you. This video is for my big dogs, the guys that actually have the courage to hit those 7-figure months, because not everybody wants to get to that level. Some people talk about it, but this is for people that are really, really about that action. And it's very few people that are hitting 7 figures a month. Very, very few. And when I go to masterminds that are actually people that are doing those type of numbers, none of them hardly ever look like me. So I'm gonna be breaking down things that I've seen being inside these rooms and also managing our current portfolio right now. And we're doing near $3 million a month right now across our portfolio. So please stick with me throughout this video. This is not gonna be some get rich type of thing or some, I don't know whatever you think this might be, it's not that. So if you're someone that's a founder or a sales manager, or if you wanna get into sales leadership right now, you're gonna get a lot of game that you can go ahead and implement directly into the offers that you're involved with. So let's go ahead and dive in. So when this business came to me, they were already doing 100K a month and they wanted to get to $1 million a month. And if I'm gonna be real with y'all, I did not know that it was possible to do $1 million a month with my help at the time. The founder, he was out of his mind. He came to me, he said, Anthony, you came to me in a dream, and I believe that you can actually take my business to the next level. And I was just like, yo, I don't even know if that's possible in the back of my head. But I knew that wasn't my own thoughts. That doubt never really comes from me. And there's always those two voices in your head. You have the voice of doubt, and there's that other voice of courage that this is actually possible. So we ended up partnering together. I took on the deal, and then within 3 months, that business went from 100K months to over $1 million a month in profit. And that broke all of my beliefs. And then after that, I did it time and time again for other offers too as well. And the common trend that I've seen with those businesses is that the founder is usually the bottleneck. There's not any real leadership. You see, a lot of people in sales are selfish. Everything is about how much money can I make? How can I be the top closer? How can I dust all these other guys on the team and make as much money as possible? That's the worst mindset that you want to have when it comes down to leading a sales team. You see, when I came into the offer, there was already a sales rep that was doing very, very well inside of the business. And that sales rep, when I asked him about the process and what things they had in place for me to start developing other reps, there was nothing there. They were selling off of vibes. There was really no system in place. So I started having to build out the actual sales department. You see, people have a sales team, but there's not really a department. And a lot of times people really don't know the difference between sales management and then also sales operations. You see, sales management, that is you reviewing reps' calls, holding them accountable, making sure that they're hitting their KPIs and everything. But sales operations, that's everything else. That's making sure that things are working, that you actually have the right email reminders in place, the right text reminders. Your GHL is, your CRM is completely dialed in. Things are triggering and firing off the right way. You have forecasts. There was no forecast inside of that company. There was no projections. There was no tracking of the KPIs to know the exact numbers that we had to bring in on the marketing team for the sales team to end up performing. Once we started understanding our numbers, there was no guessing. It wasn't, I feel like we can hit 200K this month, or I feel like we can hit our first $1 million month. Nothing at all was based on feelings. It was, these are the numbers. This is the exact things that we have to do to hit these goals. You see, most high ticket offer owners and sales managers, they don't know exactly what numbers they have to do to hit those 7-figure months. And oftentimes, it's not that hard to actually tell what you have to do. And you see, the number one metric that you have to focus on when you're hitting these 7-figure months, it's just booked appointments. Getting more booked appointments. That was the biggest bottleneck. And that's something very, very basic. It's not super high level, but oftentimes people want to overcomplicate these 7-figure months. You have to be able to just focus on how many booked appointments are actually coming into your funnel every single day. And then what is the deal cycle for those booked appointments? How long does it take from someone coming into the CRM from being a cold lead or organic? And how long does it take for that lead to convert into a high ticket purchase? Once you have that number, let's just say it takes 25 days for that to happen. Well, now I know that if I ever change anything in the sales cycle, it's gonna take me about 25 days to realize those changes. Oftentimes, the sales manager or the founder, they're changing too many things at once. Imagine if there's something broken within your sales cycle, such as the pitch, and you change the pitch, but then you also are changing up things earlier in the discovery too as well. But now you're changing two things at once and you don't know what's actually broken and which thing actually fixed that solution. If the average deal cycle is 25 days for a lead to go from opting in, having their first call to actually closing out, well, if you're changing things faster than 25 days, you're not getting enough time to figure out what actually worked and what didn't work. So I started making less decisions and more of the right decisions. You see, less is more when you're hitting those 7-figure months. One of the biggest things that I noticed on this offer was the show up rate. It was at 40%. So I knew if I got it to around 80% of a show up rate, then the business would end up doubling. So let me run you through a scenario, right? And I'll show you guys exactly what I would end up changing for this business. So let's just say one business has a 30% show up rate and the sales team is closing at an 18% close rate. The sales team is getting about 100 booked appointments. They're currently hitting 70 touch points a day on average. And there's 4 setters on the team and there's about 1,000 new leads inside of the CRM in the last 30 days. Well, there's a lot of things you can fix and you have to know which one to spend the most of your energy on. So the first thing that you would want to do is doubling that show up rate. Because if the show up rate is around 30%, if you just double it and it goes to 60%, now you've doubled the business. That deal is nothing at all about getting better at sales because that same close rate, which I believe I said it was about 18%, that's gonna take a long time to get the sales team to end up increasing their close rate to 25 or 30%. That takes a lot of time, energy, and effort. But simply increasing the show up rate, that's something that can happen overnight. All you have to do is just put the right systems in place and test a few different things out on the show up rate to increase the conversions. But imagine if you're trying to fix the show up rate and you're also trying to fix the close rate and you're also trying to hire on more SDRs and make all these decisions, you're gonna end up having decision fatigue and you're also not gonna know what actually is working the best. So when you're the top closer or you're the founder on the offer, you've been selling so much, a lot of times the decisions that you have to make are instant. Like you want to make sales as quickly as possible. But when you're going to those 7-figure months, it's okay and it's best to actually slow down, quote unquote, because you're going to need data. And if your deal cycles, I'm telling you guys, you have to know how long your deal cycles are. If your deal cycles are 25 days, 7 days, 3 days, 4 days, whatever it is, that is time that you want to wait before you change out multiple things. Oftentimes founders are scrambling and they're just like, yo, let's hit these huge months as soon as possible. But it does take time to build a team and you have to go from that individual contributor mindset and it's all about me and we're gonna do this super fast to let's build something that's scalable. Let's actually lead and develop and grow the team. Let's go ahead and fix one thing at a time, and then over a time period from actually looking at the KPIs and tracking all the data, you can know exactly what to fix and what to change. So in that scenario, all you would have to do is double the show up rate and then now you've already doubled the business. Now, after you double the show up rate, the easiest thing to do is not actually fixing the close rate. Like I said, there's 1,000 new leads and the setters, they're barely hitting up enough people. So now the easiest thing that you could do next is just bringing on more setters to the business. Now, whenever you're recruiting and staffing more setters into the company, let me walk you guys through a real scenario. So this company that was stuck at about 100K a month in revenue, they had a lot of leads that never got contacted again. You see, they didn't have the right amount of setters hitting up the no-shows, hitting up the opt-ins. People were being contacted later than 5 minutes of them being opted in. All these different things were all going and linking back to the setters. Yeah, the closers were only closing at an 18% close rate, but that wasn't the easiest thing for us to actually come in and fix. we needed to just get those closers more booked appointments first before we started trying to change too many things. So after the show up rate ended up doubling from 30% to 60%, we started installing more processes in place so we can bring on setters a lot faster. Because originally, whenever that founder would bring on more setters onto the offer, they would have to train them up from the beginning. It was nothing at all was systematic. It was, okay, we're gonna recruit somebody, we're gonna hire them. There was no like actual recruiting process. There was no set interview process at all in place inside of that company. So it was just scrambling and guessing. So they would just find random people on Instagram that would DM them, hey, I'm really great at setting. You might be getting these DMs right now. Most of those people suck. And a lot of times it was a recruiting issue, getting the right setters in place. And the setters are 10 times more important than the closers, because if there's not booked appointments onto the sales team's calendar, then the closer will never perform. It doesn't matter if that closer has a 40% close rate, they're only getting 8 meetings a week. And something else that's really important, this is another thing I noticed on that offer. They had 2 closers on the team, and every single day, those closers were packed out with meetings every single day. And those meetings were for 30 minutes, back to back to back to back. And what ended up happening was a lot of those leads were unqualified. So although each closer had about 12 meetings each, they were only pitching the offer about 3 times a day. So you need to know, what is your actual pitch rate? That's a very important metric. How many deals are you actually pitching a day? Because a booked appointment doesn't mean someone actually ended up getting pitched. So we started optimizing the whole entire funnel in the sales cycle to be focused on not solely just only the booked appointments after that was solved, but how many people that we are actually pitching a day, which is a very important metric. So once we went from that 30% show up rate to moving over to a 60% show up rate, it was all about how many people are we actually pitching that are showing up to that meeting. And that's when we had to bring on the right setters to start disqualifying people. Because your closers, when you're scaling up and they're getting a bunch of appointments, people do burn out. The closers are not robots or anything at all like that. So people would eventually take too many meetings. And then when you have so many meetings, people start to not update the CRM properly. And I'm not a CRM like junkie or anything like that. Like I don't press the closers or anything too much on the CRM. We have like sales operators to handle that. But what ends up happening is the closers end up getting burnt out. Like they don't show up to the proper calls the right way. So what we noticed was when the closers would have so many calls in their calendar because they're not being pre-qualified the right way by the setting team, and people are just slipping through the cracks, and now we have all these extra booked appointments, but people aren't pre-qualified the right way. By the time the closer gets on a call after having 4 and 5 meetings throughout the day with leads that either didn't show up, they weren't as qualified, by the time they actually got to a qualified appointment, that closer was already exhausted from talking to the wrong leads. So less became more with these closers. We started heavily disqualifying them and started adding on friction to the offer. But if you aren't currently getting enough appointments onto the calendar right now, adding on friction, there's a time and place for it. Let's just say the founder starts to go viral, or marketing starts to ramp up the ad spend and you guys are getting a bunch of booked appointments and the closers' calendars are completely packed out. That's a great time to add friction. And friction was a thing that really, really helped us hit that $3 million a month profit quarter. Because when we started to get so many appointments, we actually had a viral campaign that ended up going out and we got thousands and thousands of booked appointments coming down the chute. We had to make it very complex and difficult for people to book calls with us. And so many times people get too caught up in booked calls and getting really excited and saying, wow, like I have all these booked appointments, but who's actually qualified? And it ends up burning out your closers. And then now you have to overstaff the team. When we had that $1 million a month in profit, we only had 4 closers on the team at the time. That's it, just only 4. And a lot of teams, when they're scaling up to that first 7-figure a month in profit, they have way too many team members in place. And now you're having to manage all these extra people that are only contributing very, very little to the actual organization. So one metric that we started tracking was, let's look at each closer and see how much cash collected that they brought in for the last 100 appointments. And this metric really helped us out a lot because it was very unbiased. Because the last 100 appointments, we didn't just go off of the last 100 appointments to show up or the last 100 qualified appointments. No, we just said, okay, you had 100 people that booked on your calendar. How much cash collected did you bring in? And whoever had the lowest amount of cash collected for those 100 appointments, we ended up started removing them from the team. And so let me run you through a scenario real quick. Let's just say there's 3 closers. There's closer A, there's closer B, and there's closer C. Closer A brings in $100,000 every 100 appointments that he takes. Closer B brings in $50,000 every 100 appointments he takes. And then closer C brings in $20,000 every 100 appointments that they take. Now, the sales manager or founder or whoever is leading the sales team, let's just say they don't know about checking for the last 100 appointments. So the next 100 appointments come in, same exact thing happens, right? Where closer A brings in 100K, closer B brings in 50, and then closer C brings in $10,000. How much money did that actually just cost the business? It actually ended up costing the business $90,000 because we could have just offboarded closer C and had closer A take those last 100 appointments. And if you're not tracking the last 100 appointments, this is very hard and it's actually going to cost you money when you're scaling up. So what we started doing was we got very clear on our numbers. We knew exactly how much cash collected each closer would bring in per 100 appointments. And then the closer that started closing the most, we started feeding him the most leads too as well. And one thing that also we did on the leadership side was knowing when to slow down a closer's calendar. If they had too many leads or deals outstanding that they should be closing up on already, turning down their calendar so they can close out on their existing deals. Because yeah, they can keep talking to new people on the top of the funnel, but there becomes a point in time where they just need to focus solely on their existing deals and there's enough people to follow up with inside of their nurturing sequences. So those are just some different things that really helped us. The last thing that I noticed that helps these sales teams hit that first 7-figure a month in profit is getting dialed in on financing. Financing is everything. Having the right finance partners in place and making sure that the sales team knows how to leverage them the right way. Something that's very common right now is Split It. You might hear about Klarna, but we had some finance partners that we would go out and find that other people weren't leveraging. We knew about things like Split It very early on, and there's still finance partners that we're leveraging right now, still to this day, that most high ticket business owners have no idea about. And that's one of the main advantages that we had, was having the right finance partners. Because a lot of times people want to do it, but they don't have the money. Money has always been the biggest objection. And you have to have the right systems in place to make sure you're capitalizing off of every single lead that's coming down the chute. So having the right finance partners and also the right process in place to make sure no one drops off in the middle of the financing and the funding. We started bringing on a role which is called a finisher. The finish owner would just come in once the lead is fully committed and they're like, I want to do this. The finisher would run them through all of these different finance partners and ensure that the deal was done. So bringing on those finishers, that actually helped a lot, because now the closer who already finished up on the deal is passing it off to the finisher, and then they can just focus on their next call, because running people through a finance partner, that can take a long time, especially if there's multiple finance options that people can leverage. So the finisher was a complete game changer. And financing is literally everything. I want you to think about it. What if you could have your lead qualification? Let's just say you're getting 100 leads and 70 of them are qualified. What if you just got another 20 qualified and your guys' close rate was 25%? That's an extra 5 deals every single month that now your team can start having. What's an extra 5 deals over the next 12 months? That's 60 deals. And your offer is worth, what, $10,000. Now your business is making an extra $600,000 just by having another finance option and having the right process in place to get more qualified leads. I'm telling you guys, financing is everything when you're hitting those 7-figure months. You have to have that dialed in. Sometimes under the sun, it can look like everything is the same, but I'll tell you this, guys, like some finance partners on different platforms have higher approval rates. So you might be using Klarna on Stripe, but Klarna might be better on another finance partner, and vice versa. Same with Afterpay and Affirm and all these other finance partners. There's a lot of things you guys have to have in place on the finance partners. That was a complete game changer for us. And we started prioritizing finance partners so much that we even built a department that would go out and try to find finance partners. That's a whole entire separate video that I probably won't ever even release that. I'll just keep that to our portfolio clients out of respect for them, because I know they pay us really good money. But hey, if you ever want to become a portfolio client, or you're a sales manager, sales leader, or offer owner who wants to take your sales team to the next level, you guys are struggling with leadership, you guys are capped out, you've had some great months and then things spike down and you want to go to that next level, there's an application below for you actually to apply over here at Power Studio. But the whole point of this channel, guys, is just provide you guys value and just tell you guys things that it took for me to get where I am at and all the teams that I've been able to grow to as well. So there's another video right here. Hope to see you guys on that one, and peace out.